There is a kind of strength the world doesn't understand. The strength to say nothing, the power to walk away not with anger, but with peace. The quiet victory of a soul that no longer needs to prove its worth through noise. When you went no contact, you didn't do it to punish them. You did it to protect your spirit. You stopped responding not because you stopped caring, but because you started healing. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." And that's what you did. You realized that real control is not about changing others. It's about mastering yourself. They once believed they had command over your emotions. They knew how to trigger your anger, how to draw you into argument, how to make you justify your love. But now, silence. No response. No reaction. No validation. They reach for control and grasp only air. At first, they tell themselves they don't care. They laugh it off, scroll past your name, pretend you're a distant memory. But as the days pass, your silence begins to expand inside them, like an echo that refuses to fade. Because silence has weight. It presses against their mind with every unanswered message. It lingers in the room where you once stood. It reminds them that you are no longer available to absorb their chaos. They thought your presence was guaranteed. They thought you would always reply, always forgive, always come back. But your stillness tells them something new. You have changed. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom begins when reaction ends, and that's what drives them crazy. Your silence is not a tactic. It's transformation. They can't see the inner battles you fought to reach this calm. The nights when your mind screamed to reach out, the memories that tried to pull you back. But each time you remembered. Every message you don't send is an act of self-respect. Every silence you hold is a wall built out of wisdom. Because peace is not passive, it's a practice. And the Stoics knew this well. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And so you stopped suffering. You stopped replaying the story in your head, stopped imagining closure from those who could never give it. You began to live in reality, your reality, where their opinion no longer defines your peace. And while you sit quietly, rebuilding your life from within, they begin to unravel, not because you said anything, but because you said nothing. Silence exposes truth. When you were speaking, they could hide behind your words. When you stopped, they were left alone with themselves. Now, they are haunted by their own echoes. They wonder what you're thinking, who you're with, how you've become so composed. They scroll your name, check old conversations, and stare at your stillness, trying to decode a language they never learned, the language of restraint. They start to imagine what they've lost. They picture your calm face, your steady voice, the gentleness they once dismissed. And now, the absence of that energy feels like winter, cold, silent, endless. Because what once seemed ordinary was sacred. What they called boring was actually peace. And what they took for granted is now the thing they crave most, your calm presence. But do not be fooled. Their curiosity is not always remorse. Sometimes it's confusion. Sometimes it's ego, the desperate need to prove they still matter. You are not their mirror anymore. You are not here to reflect their worth. Your silence forces them to see what's inside themselves, and they don't like what they find. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one you have stopped explaining. You have started being." Your peace speaks for you now. Your composure has become your reply. Imagine the scene. They stare at their phone, the same way a soldier stares across an empty battlefield. They wait for the reply that never comes. Their pride tells them to stay silent too. But their mind betrays them. They check again, and again, because no contact is not a wall. It's a mirror. And what they see reflected back is everything they ignored, everything they broke, everything they are now forced to face alone. They suffer silently because you've taken away their favorite distraction. You. Without your energy to absorb their chaos, They must now sit with the storm they created, and storms, when uncontained, devour their own. So remain still. Let the silence work in your favor. You don't need to announce your growth. You don't need to prove your strength. You already have. Because the one who speaks less controls more. The one who reacts least rules most. Epictetus would remind you, control the controllable, and nothing more. Your mind, your discipline, your peace. You've mastered what they could not, detachment, and that's why they suffer. Because the game they played now exists without an opponent. They are loud with questions. You are quiet with answers. They seek closure. You live in clarity. They chase attention. You rest in intention. You are no longer their story. You are your own. And as Marcus Aurelius once said, the greatest revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. So be unlike them. Be calm. Be free. Be sovereign, because the silence they can't stand is the peace you fought for. There comes a point in every soul's journey when silence becomes more powerful than speech, when absence speaks louder than presence, and restraint becomes the sharpest sword of all. You see, no contact is not about punishment. It is not revenge. It is revelation. Because when you step away, you remove the illusion, the comfort they had in believing that you would always be there. Your silence turns into a mirror. And in that mirror, they see themselves clearly for the first time, stripped of excuses, stripped of ego, stripped of the illusion that they were in control. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love. But they wake now with something different, the absence of you. What was once taken for granted has become the ghost haunting their mornings. They sip their coffee and remember the warmth of your messages. They lie awake at night and feel the void where your voice once lived. And though they may not admit it, they are suffering in silence. At first, they tried to fill the emptiness. They distracted themselves with noise, new people, new routines, anything to drown the quiet hum of regret. But silence has a way of finding its way back. It creeps in during the slow moments, the drive home, the lonely weekend, the quiet before sleep. It whispers your name, not because you belong to them, but because you've become the symbol of peace they can't replicate. Because when you left, you didn't just take your presence. You took the calm they borrowed from you. You took the balance they fed on, the light they dimmed without ever realizing it came from you. And now, they must face their own reflection. Raw, unfiltered, uncomfortably honest. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and that is what consumes them now. Imagination." They replay every conversation, searching for meaning in your silence. They wonder if you think of them, if you've moved on, if there's still a path back. They imagine your life without them, and that imagination hurts more than the truth. You see, silence is the great equalizer. It exposes the strong and humbles the weak. Those who once sought validation through control crumble when their words lose. In fact, your silence is not just an act, it's a lesson. It teaches them what their noise could never reveal. That your peace does not depend on them. That your worth never needed their recognition. That your love was never theirs to manipulate. And that truth is what drives them crazy. Because deep down, they realize something they never expected. You were not addicted to them. They were addicted to your understanding. They were addicted to your calmness, your compassion, your patience, and now that you're gone, they are left to face their own storm, without your shelter. Picture this. The Emperor of Rome sits alone at dawn, writing by candlelight. His armies are asleep. The city is still. He writes not of conquest, but of control. Not of ruling others, but ruling himself. Marcus Aurelius whispers through time, "The greatest war ever fought was never on the battlefield, but within the mind of man." That is the war you have already won. You conquered the battlefield of emotion. You stopped chasing, explaining, justifying. You learned the rarest skill of all, to stay still in a world that constantly provokes you to react. They, on the other hand, are still fighting that war. Every unanswered message is a wound to their ego. Every day of silence feels like defeat. They oscillate between pride and panic, between pretending they don't care and checking, Your page at 2 a.m. They wonder how you've become so composed, how you seem untouched by what once consumed you. Both. The answer is simple. Discipline. The same discipline that built empires and carved wisdom into the stones of history now protects your peace, Epictetus said. No man is free who is not master of himself, and you, through silence, have mastered yourself. You've proven that emotional detachment is not coldness, it's clarity, that peace does not mean passivity, it means purpose. Now, you live differently. Your mornings are no longer haunted by anxiety, your nights are no longer filled with mental noise. You've stopped waiting for closure from others because you've given it to yourself. And while you move with calm assurance, they move with confusion. Your peace has become their punishment, not because you intended it, but because it reflects everything they lack.